Well, hey guys, welcome back, and there has been a lot of insanity over the weekend, like more than I can remember. It's just a lot in the news cycle, a lot of things kicking off, a lot of craziness. So we have this story from the BBC about a Minnesota shooter who has now been found and detained by the police. They found him in a field, which has now ended a several-day manhunt with this individual person who we'll talk about, and a lot of people feel like this is a little bit of a psyop or a false flag, if you will. I have not seen enough to make my own opinion on this, but we're just going to report on this and kind of go through this together. So from the BBC, a man has been arrested on suspicion of ending the life of a Democratic state lawmaker and her husband after a 2-day manhunt in the U.S. state of Minnesota. The chase came to an end in a wooded rural area west of Minneapolis, where he surrendered peacefully and ended up crawling towards officers, the police said. Vance Luther Bolter, 57, is charged with ending the life of Melissa Hortman, a Minnesota Democrat, and her husband Mark, State Governor. State Governor Tim Walz called it a politically motivated hit. He is also alleged to have shot and wounded Democratic State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette, who are both now awake and in the hospital. Mrs. Hoffman said on Sunday that they both felt incredibly lucky to be alive. Yeah, no kidding, as they had been hit by 17 rounds between them. That is insane. She and her husband have been gutted and devastated by the Hortman's, passing. Mrs. Hoffman added in her statement, "We have no words," she wrote. "There is never a place for this kind of political hate." Mr. Bolter faces 2 counts of second-degree ending the life of other people, and 2 counts of second-degree attempts. He is due to appear in court in Minneapolis at 13:30 local time on Monday. The suspect is a former political appointee and once a member of the same state workforce development board as John Hoffman. However, it is unclear if they actually knew each other. Police have not suggested what his motives might have been, but U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar has joined Governor Walz in suggesting the attacks were politically motivated. Of course, because every time one of these things happen, it's either left-wing lunatic or right-wing lunatic, right? Officials said on Sunday that Vance Luther Bolter was detained after investigators found a car he had used in Sibley County about 50 miles from where the crime scene was in Brooklyn Park. Air and SWAT teams were deployed to arrest the suspect following a huge manhunt that was described as the largest in Minnesota's history. That's pretty crazy. No police officers were injured, and officials said they were not looking for any other suspects. His wife was detained and then let go because she was cooperating with the investigators. Speaking at a press conference with other officials on Sunday, Governor Walz said the attack was an unspeakable act that had altered the state of Minnesota. I don't know. I feel like it's because of the target, not because of the crime. We have crazy amounts of life-ending events that happen every weekend in every large city in America, but nobody talks about that because they're just a bunch of nobodies compared to these politicians, right? This cannot be the norm. It cannot be the way that we deal with our political differences. I mean, I agree with that. Mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob praised the skill and bravery of law enforcement agencies following the arrest. Political violence is abhorrent. Again, claiming that it's political when we actually don't know yet. That's the crazy part. So Bolter is accused of impersonating an officer to carry out the attacks before exchanging fire with police and then fleeing from the suburban area. Melissa Hortman has served in the Minnesota House of Representatives for 20 years and was Speaker of the Chamber from 2019 to 2025. As well as having some political involvement, Bolter is a security contractor and religious missionary who has worked in Africa and the Middle East. According to Facebook photos, he once preached as a church pastor in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Investigators reportedly found a list of targets in the vehicle that he is thought to have driven for the alleged shootings. Drew Evans, superintendent of the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, told reporters that he would not describe the notebook found in the car as a manifesto, as it was not a treatise on all kinds of ideology and writings. Local media have reported the names including Governor Walz, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, and State Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. During the press conference on Sunday, Mr. Evans did not specify who was featured on the list, but said the state officials had contacted authorities in Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, Nebraska, and Iowa so they could be notify individuals that were on the list. This is pretty crazy how insane and detailed this was. Now, here's where it gets a lot more insane, because obviously we've talked about the fact that this was supposed to be a politically motivated attack, although the police are saying that they have no evidence of that. Tim Walz, the guy who said that he was allegedly friends with school shooters, I know that he was saying he made friends with people who were victims of it, but he misspoke during the VP debates, and it was pretty funny, to be honest. He appointed this guy, Vance Bolter, to his position on a development board. Now, again, That doesn't mean that they are aligned politically, obviously. It doesn't mean that they're best buddies, but it does mean that there was some direct involvement between Tim Walz, his office, and Vance Bolter, the alleged shooter. What's weirder than that, I'm not going to bother playing the video because audio is a little low on this video. The roommate of the alleged assassin says he wasn't a Democrat. He didn't like Tim Walz. He didn't like Jim Biden. He listened to InfoWars. Now, the weirdest part, and this is where the story gets really strange, Bolter is an old man, an old fat man. Allegedly, he is a pastor who was trying to de-radicalize Islamists, is the story that I've seen floating around online. His roommate, now this is a man that's well into his almost 60s here, Bolter is. He had this guy who's a roommate of his, who's a Papa John's employee, I believe, or Papa Murphy's, one of the pizza joints, who has all this knowledge about his political leanings and what this guy, what he thought and what made him tick. And says he wasn't a Democrat. He'd be insulted if somebody called him a Democrat, right? Of course, we finally have people talking about the actual political affiliation of the shooter. And this, of course, is from Sarah Fields on Twitter. I'm going to play a little bit of what she has to say about it.
First of all, he was appointed under Tim Walz until 2023. Why would a registered Republican in 2022 be working under Tim Walz until 2023? This is Vance Luther Bolter's voter information right here. This provides proof that he was registered as a Republican in Oklahoma in 2004. But if you look at the Minnesota voter registration, you'll see that there is no party affiliation listed under Minnesota. That would be because if you look up the direct registration of Minnesota, all it provides you is his name and his birth year and if he's registered to vote or not, which he was, but it does not tell you party affiliation. As an investigative journalist, I've been doing this for years, and I have a team that looks up people's voter registration information all the time. Mainstream media is straight up lying to you about his party affiliation. Why would they do that?
And again, this is something we've seen time and time again. We know why they do this, because they want to spin a specific narrative. Of course, she has this follow-up video talking about how CNN is finally the one who said something accurate. You can see in the screenshot of the video here. It says, with Hoffman records show in 2019, Governor Tim Walz put Bolter on the governor's Workforce Development Board, a group of business owners who recommend policies to the state government. It's unclear how closely Bolter and Hoffman interacted in that role. Bolter registered to vote as a Republican in the early 2000s, state records show. A state document listing his 2019 appointment shows no party preference. Search Minnesota criminal records showed no cases against Bolter. And of course, just the rest of his personal life. So again, admitting that there's not actually any direct political ties. Here's where it gets even weirder, though. Now, I'm just going to play this video in the background. I'll just turn the audio off. It's just birds chirping. This is video footage, I do believe, from the morning of or morning after the attacks. The man that's, again, Bolter, the alleged shooter, apparently broke into his own SUV at 6 o'clock in the morning. Again, I don't understand what the train of thought is here. I don't understand the motivation. None of this stuff makes any sense. You can see him hammering in the window right there. And the video goes on for a couple more minutes. There's not really a whole lot other than him breaking into the car that you can see in this video. So, of course, this account on Twitter, 0 Hour, has been sharing a lot of this information, saying totally normal for a preacher at 6 a.m. That's some covert spy ops shit. The quartering sharing these screenshots from these videos saying, this is Vance at 6 a.m. This other picture is of the alleged shooter. Somehow he lost 100 pounds and then gained it right back hours later. And again, this is a blurry, still from the camera footage. But again, this is where he dressed up as a police officer to commit the crimes. So again, 0 Hour saying the narrative is that Cowboy McFatty kills 2 politicians, leaves a manifesto and flyers in the car, gets caught by a cop in a mask, and runs away like Usain Bolt. Again, I don't understand the whole getting caught by a cop in the mask thing. Again, the story, a lot of this stuff is really bizarre. A lot of it doesn't make any sense. The shooter was in the mask. There you go. Gets across the city, gets stuff at his house, calls his roommate, says, I did bad stuff and broke a window in my car with a hammer, and we're just going to be like, okay. And then, of course, again, another still from the video says, remember those No Kings flyers for the No Kings protests that we've had going on? There he is posting one on the door. Again, I don't know that we can determine that that is actually one of the No Kings protest signs. But again, I think this point goes back to the fact that a lot of Republicans, or people who consider themselves traditionally Republican or moderate right-leaning, also don't like Donald Trump. So the idea that just because somebody either, leans right or leans left and all of a sudden it's political extremism, The reality is there are a lot of traditional Republicans who hate Trump. There's a lot of traditional Democrats who hated Kamala Harris. I don't think it's as simple as left-wing extremists, right-wing extremists. Sometimes there are crazy people in the middle as well. So I'm going to leave it right there, guys. Share your thoughts on all this down below. This is a very weird situation that I don't know that we're going to get a whole lot of actual answers about. And unfortunately, just like what we've seen in mass events in like Vegas and other areas where we just have more questions than answers, I don't know that we're ever going to know the actual story behind this one. But I'm going to wrap it up. Share your thoughts down below, and I will catch you guys on the next one. All right, and if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you for being here. I do have 2 channels, Minimal Effort Podcast, as well as my gaming channel. I do have a Twitch and Kick for my gaming channel. We do live streams over there occasionally, maybe once a week. And then if you are in the market for a new PC, make sure to check out Meta PCs. Click the link I have down below. Use code TBO at checkout for a special discount. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time.